Hi, I am Dr. Carmen Celestini.
And I'm Kyle Hickey, and this is God's Angry Men. Thank you for joining us again. It has been a busy few days, a
It
busy
certainly
week
has.
actually, in Canada, in the world. Lots has happened.
A lot has happened. But if you're interested in the things that we're talking about and you really want to be a part of this conversation, please don't forget to subscribe and be part of our group and conversation. So I think what we wanted to start talking about was, I don't know, a little tariff thing, something maybe?
Yeah, in case you guys didn't know, there's a whole tariff thing happening in Canada, the US, and Mexico right now. Um, It is Monday, February 3rd right now. This will probably get posted either tomorrow or the day after. But as of right now, tariff war, trade war averted for 30 days
On a pause.
on a pause. But a lot of drama, a lot of needless drama that led up to
Absolutely.
this. Starting on Saturday night when Donald Trump announced that indeed we would be tariffed at 25% for most, if not all, our exports.
Except for gas and oil, because you want that at a cheaper rate
Of
because they already
course,
get it at rock bottom
they
rate from us. Sorry.
no, that's okay. I was gonna say they already received quite a bit from us in terms of energy. So yeah, I think it's a bad policy to plunge part of the country into darkness or make them pay more.
But the ridiculous thing, I mean, I just had to stop it. So he's mad at Mexico, he's mad at Canada, and said that the trade tariffs would remain until no American died from fentanyl. Um, okay. So do y'all remember the song from South Park, Blame Canada?
I was never really a big fan of South Park. I mean, I've seen a couple episodes and I did laugh at them, but it was never my thing. I'm more of a Family Guy guy.
I am too, but Blame Canada was perfect because that is the situation here. So I want to put it into perspective. I know that Kyle has listened to me go on about this for a few days now.
Just a few.
Um, Canada last year found 19 kilograms of fentanyl leaving our border going to the American border. So that would equal, for those who are not into metrics, 49 pounds. Mexico, they found 9,600 kilograms. I'm not going to do the math on that. That's not going to happen. But it's like putting it into Kyle's knapsack, as he said earlier, or renting a transport truck to drive things over. Two totally different things. Also, I'm sorry, it's like the gun situation in America. It's like guns don't kill people, people do. So we're never going to stop gun problems or address it. Meanwhile, we'll just keep saying guns aren't the problem. So y'all are in charge of your drug addiction, just like we're in charge of the people who are addicted to drugs here. You can't blame somebody else if you can't control your own
And I
stuff.
think the Mexican president, she made a really good point with that, basically saying, I don't have her exact quote right now, but basically saying, look, the drugs might be coming from Mexico, might be coming from Canada to a very small degree, but it is the people in the country who are consuming it. These people obviously have issues and they need help, and they should get that help. And I honestly encourage anyone,
Absolutely.
get the help you need. But that's easier said than done. But you're blaming everyone. You're not looking inwards. You're not saying, okay, our house is a mess. Let's clean it up. And maybe that's his way of saying this is how we're going to clean it up. It's not very
It's not
effective.
effective at all. And what happened was, Canada went, well, all right, let's deal with this. And in a very tumultuous time in Canadian
Hmm.
politics with Justin Trudeau resigning, there's a party leadership election going on. We have Pierre Poilievre, beating his chest every 30 seconds saying, I won an election, like he doesn't know how the whole entire political system works with proroguing the government and how that works. Suddenly he thinks he's just, I don't know, maybe Donald Trump and can do it
Well,
by
I mean, didn't
edict.
didn't his own party pull this tactic in a similar way
Yeah,
a couple of years ago? I mean, I'm just saying, but
just saying, but it's okay when they do it, not when someone else does it. But so we are in a tenuous situation. Plus, we have Danielle Smith in Alberta, who is also part of the Conservative Party, who's like, drill, baby, drill. We need all the oil. You can't stop us. And had actually gone to Mar-a-Lago for to meet with Donald Trump and tried to get to the inauguration. And then when it was closed, she had to hang out in the Canadian consulate. But so we're in a tumultuous place. We're not like, kumbaya and hugging as you have said in the past.
sad.
But we all came together. I mean, Canada came together.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, if you've been following politics for a while, divisions have only gotten deeper.
Hmm.
People are no longer coming together, having those conversations of saying, hey, you know what, we disagree on XYZ, but we can find common ground. I've said it before, that common ground is becoming, more and more barren by the day. There's very little, if
Yes.
anything, happening in that. Everyone's going to their corners and staying there. But it was really inspiring seeing it on Saturday night. I was watching the coverage. I know you were.
We're texting back and forth
Um,
as we do.
you saw an almost immediate sense of unity in Canada when the tariffs were announced. Um, this is going to sound trivial, but at a hockey game, I mean,
Yeah.
you have the Ottawa Senators versus, I believe, the Minnesota Wild.
Hmm.
They were playing in Ottawa, and the American anthem, if you watch any form of sports, in Canada, will play both anthems if both countries are being represented in that game. And Canadians respect the American anthem. Hell, they helped them sing it one time when the
Hmm.
singer was having technical difficulties with her microphone, and it was a beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. And that was before. Now we have Canadians booing it loudly,
Absolutely.
and it kind of warmed my heart there to
Oh my
see
God.
that because.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying boo America because I
No.
know many people in America. They're wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I just talked to someone about this too. We're not anti-American. I think our response is anti-Trump. And I think, honestly, when I'm online, Americans who are anti-Trump are like, go Canada, go get him, go get him. So I still think that that relationship of humanity is still connected, but we're pissed off.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and this is going to that point where, for unity, you had Justin Trudeau, who is deeply unpopular in the country, very unpopular. He's leaving the office essentially in disgrace. Uh, he was able to stand at that
Hmm.
podium on Saturday night, flanked by senior members of his government. And he, for the first time in a very long time, if ever, looked like a leader.
Yeah, I think like during COVID, he had that too,
Yeah,
right?
he did
Like he
have
really
that.
brought that thing together. And I think, I'm not that I'm harking back to COVID, but I think that we're gonna get through this together, right? We're together doing this was really one of the narratives in COVID. Ignore a convoys. But I think we're in this together was really what was saying, and he was very prime ministerial, which we
If
decided was a word today.
Yeah, but exactly. I mean, I'm not going to call him presidential because we don't have a president in Canada. We are not that country.
Yeah.
But for the first time in a long time, I was actually happy to hear what he had to say, hear how he delivered it, and I think the message resonated across Canada for the most part. And I'm under no illusion. I'm not going to say this kumbaya moment lasts forever. We are heading into an election probably in the next several months once the Liberals pick their next leader who will become the next prime minister, who effectively is taking the control of the Titanic before it sinks. It's
Yeah.
really not going to be a great scenario for
Mm,
them. But on that same note, if you look at some of the polling, it's tightened a little bit. I'm not saying
absolutely.
dramatically, but you had Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives with a very strong, healthy lead. I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but it's shrunk a bit. Still within majority territory, still looking to take over the government and be a majority government, but there is a potential that the Liberals could hold them back a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to
I'm
happen.
not, but what I will say is this rhetoric of Donald Trump saying that Canada will be the 51st state. Even today, he had the conversation with Justin Trudeau, at 9 a.m. And then he had
Your old
another one
pal
at 3.
JT there, huh?
I always call him JT in my classes too.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I know I do. It's so, disrespectful, but
Very
also
disrespectful. It's the prime
kind of a
minister.
boy band situation.
He may be unpopular. He's still the prime minister. Show
I
some
know it's
respect.
still a boy band kind of situation with JT. I mean, come on.
I don't want to hear him
Anyways,
sing. Just saying that
yeah,
now.
you could be amazing.
Maybe.
Anyways, this rhetoric. So Trump came back before the 3 o'clock meeting and said that all of this could end if Canada just became the 51st state. Okay, so first of all, we're never going to do that. I'm just going to
No.
say that right now. And that 51st state thing is changing the unity, but also the politics here.
True.
So
True.
unity. Tom, oh, you're young, but Tom Green, comedian who I know most Americans know as well, put out a song today about Canadians. The old "I Am Canadian" beer commercial for
From Molson
Molson.
Canadian.
They did
I
a
love
brand
that
new one. They
commercial.
did a brand new one with the
Really?
history of
Oh, I
Canada,
have to watch
ending
that.
with him at the end, and it's like kind of give you goosebumps, patriotism kind of thing that is happening. And people have created all these Facebook groups and all these social media groups where they're sharing what are the equivalent of the American products that you can get in
Hmm.
Canada and what the difference between a product of Canada is and made in Canada
Correct.
because there's
Important
two different
distinctions.
things. And everyone, even like dog groups I belong to, we're all like going, okay, this is the dog food you have, this is the one you should get, and these are the pet stores that are Canadian. So people were coming together, but Jagmeet Singh from the NDP came out and said that, we will never become a 51st state and we will fight till the end for that, which could put Jagmeet in a situation that after the proroguing, that he goes, oh, you know what? I'm going to support whoever the new liberal leader is because we are in this very precarious situation. And Pierre Polyev is being Donald Trump Jr.
Hmm. Well, you raise a good point there because obviously he's kind of hinted at it that once the liberals decide who will be their next leader, they vote that
Yep.
person in. And let's face it, it's either going to be Mark Carney
Carney
or
or
Chrystia
Christie.
Freeland.
Yeah.
My money's on Carney right
Mine
now.
too.
But whoever takes over becomes prime minister. I think Jagmeet Singh will look at it as Canada needs to
Hmm.
have a leader, whether we agree with him or not, an actual leader with a mandate is a strong word here, but some form of authority and some form of security that he's not going to be ousted in the next few weeks, and might choose to back him at least until October of this year, because by law, we
You have
must
to.
have an election regardless.
And I think that would actually, I mean, if we're going to play chess about politics right now, that would make sense because Pierre Poilievre is digging his own grave. So he is fighting with Maxime Bernier about who really came up with the party slogan Canada First, which I'm sorry, but the more Donald Trump does Donald Trumpy things under America First, Canadians are going to start going, whoa, what is that? We don't want to deal with that. And this evening, so in the end, we're held off for 30 days because we gave Trump everything that he already had that we negotiated with Biden.
Well, I mean, and you're kind of right there because it wasn't quite with Biden himself directly. He was still
Yeah.
president, but once Trump started floating these tariff threats before he was inaugurated, he was president-elect. Justin Trudeau flew down to Mar-a-Lago
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I forgot about
yeah,
that.
had that conversation.
Oh, and that's when the 51st state thing started that
Well,
day too.
it kind of started.
The
Got called the
governor of
governor of
Canada.
Canada. Exactly. It started that whole rhetoric, and then it kept going on and on about it. And Canadians became more and more offended
Oh,
and
and then you
pissed
put up
off.
that meme of Donald Trump standing in the Swiss Alps saying that he was looking over the Rockies to Canada and is like the wrong country, the wrong continent, the wrong everything. Sorry, I just had to do that.
But let's give him some credit. He was able to, put us with at least a country that has snow. I'm just saying. I mean,
And mountains.
the bar is low, but
Geography and civics, two things Americans aren't great with. Anyways, going on. Sorry.
moving on. Um, where was I now? Oh yeah. So we did. The Canadian government did say, okay, fine. We're gonna promise you a 1.5 or 1.3. I don't remember exactly what it was now, but billions of dollars toward border security. Fair. Work on the fentanyl crisis. Absolutely necessary. Um, that was what he was promised.
Yes.
That's what he got today.
That's what he got today. And the same thing
Nothing
happened.
more.
No, and Mexico agreed to put 10,000 soldiers at the border. And when they had negotiated it with Biden, it was 15,000. So actually, Trump got 5,000 less people. So
Really,
basically,
I haven't had a chance to look into
yeah,
exactly what the Mexican government are giving, but
yeah,
they got less.
they got less. So Donald Trump is like screaming, we won, we won, we won. Everyone capitulated to me. Meanwhile, both of the countries who he's supposedly negotiating with are like, we'll just give you what we gave you before, maybe a little less. Okay, cool. You're gonna stop those tariffs. Great job, Mr. Negotiator.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Okay, great. They got nothing more. They got the same stuff they were promised already. Um, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. Republicans are now MAGA, basically. They're going to take this as a win no matter what. They're going to try to trumpet this as, our great negotiator brought Canada and Mexico to their knees and they begged for mercy and they gave us what we wanted. Okay. you definitely brought us to the table again,
Yeah.
again. You got us to reaffirm what was already being given to you. Congrats.
Yeah, good job.
Win for you.
But then we had to fast forward because Pierre Poilievre came out and did a press conference this afternoon in Vancouver, which poor Kyle was at work. And I was like, I'm going to send you this video. And then I made him read the transcript, and he's still scarred because it was really bad. The transcript was terrible. But Pierre Poilievre came out and said, okay, we're going to do all of these things, and I'm going to blame Justin Trudeau and the wokeness and all of these things, and this Canada first, blah, 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 and going back in time. Here's my thing. I'm sure I've said this before, but when we harken back to a time and we have nostalgia, we are only critiquing the contemporary times. We're not even thinking about the past because none of us were alive for that past. And so he's creating this idea, which links to my theory. This is my theory. I'm going to own it, and it may offend some. I'm going to take that. But here is my theory. Donald Trump is looking at Mexico that's putting in 9,600 kilograms of fentanyl. And he says, yeah, I just want you to bring some troops there. Canada has 19 kilograms of fentanyl. And he's like, I want you to be our 51st state. I want this, I want this, I want that. Fact is, I think Donald Trump thinks Canada is white, that we are only white people. And that's why he's trying to negotiate to own us or to annex us or to make us a 51st state.
Quite the theory, but
I
I
don't think
mean,
he understands multiculturalism because, quite honestly, if you were going to do something like that to stop fentanyl and to stop these cartels and all these crimes that he claims all comes from Mexico, wouldn't it make more sense to make Mexico the 51st state? Because then you would have control over all of that, more so than the little pittance that's coming here. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody today in the media, and off the record, we both said the same thing, that we think that he thinks that Canada is white, and that's why it's acceptable. And I think that he doesn't understand. And I think that when we hear Maxime Bernier and we hear Pierre Poilievre addressing what's happening, it is to that white Christian community that is his base.
mhm. Again,
Absolutely.
going back to the picturesque 1950s, I said it before, 1950s, Leave It to Beaver, White Picket Fence, America, Canada, that nostalgia factor. None of us were here for that.
And they're all talking about deporting. And okay, so we all know I'm always going to do the negative shit. We always know that's going
Hmm.
to happen. So while
I
everyone
try to find the middle ground. You plunge us or pull us right out of it.
right into the rabbit hole. So all of the people that I research, I have heard some things today. I will first say I'm terrible at math. We accept this. You know this about me.
I'm
Really.
sadly going to confirm that.
Today, in the groups that I was looking at, they were like, well, this is the same as the 20% carbon tax. There's no difference between the 25% tariff and the carbon tax. I don't do math. There's a huge difference. I was like, wow, wow, this is a conversation. We had people who were in the Maple Mega group who were saying that they were really mad at Polyev because all he wants to do is cancel the carbon tax and doesn't want to go deal with Donald Trump and make us a 51st state. And so they're mad at him for that. Deport everyone who's not white and it'll be okay. And birthright, it will be okay. And we will be best friends with America again. Also, convoy people were like, well, if we have tariffs, the truckers haven't got anything to do. So why don't they head back to Ottawa and we have another convoy to force an election? Again, math, economics, and the way the government works in Canada are not the strong suit of these individuals at all. But I can hear the dog whistle, even in Pierre Poilievre's thing today, where he was like, we're not going to be globalist. We're not going to have the world, doesn't call them the World Economic Forum, but a worldwide economic group influencing us and doing these things. So all the dog whistles to those groups because they were getting mad at him that he wasn't doing what they wanted. And so I think that while we were united as a country, there were people who are anti-carbon tax or the convoy people or the Maple MAGA people were using this to support their situation too, that Trump was a good guy in all of this and everyone else was bad. So very interesting mix in Canada of what was happening.
An interesting mix on that. And I mean, to go further into that mix, let's talk about the provincial responses.
Yes.
Because you know what? As much as I'm going to give Justin Trudeau some credit for how he came out and represented Canada in that moment, I'm going to do something I never thought I would do. Those who know me know I'm not a fan of Doug Ford. Um, I'm not. I'm sorry. With all due respect to the premier, there's things he has said and done I disagree with, but I'm going to give him credit. He came out guns blazing, no puns intended. I'm making
Americans.
that. Without hesitation, we are pulling off American booze from the LCBO shelves. The Liquor Control Board of Ontario is one of the largest
Hmm.
purchaser of booze, of alcohol in the world.
We have problems in
We have
Ontario.
problems. Um, that will affect a lot of people in the States who work in those industries. Again, our economy, their economy, they're bigger than us, and it's going to hurt us in the end too. But they're going to feel a pinch, as they should. I will give him that. There was no hesitation
And he
there.
did something more with that. So every province was pulling American alcohol
Oh,
off the
true.
shelves. But Doug Ford, we also have the largest people who numbers of people of restaurants and places in Ontario
Hmm.
that order from large amounts from the Liquor Control Board, and he stopped that too. You could not order American alcohol through that. So even restaurants couldn't have alcohol that was from America.
Hmm.
He shut that down, which I was, I'll give him credit for that. I'll give him credit.
Shop Canadian. Shop at Ontario is known for its wine. Okay, don't give me that look. Don't give me that look. Ontario has been trying to promote its wine for years now. I don't work for the wine industry, but Ontario does grow wine in our
It does
Niagara
grow
region.
wine. It does grow wine.
More on that later.
Um,
But he's been trying to promote that, and I think it's a great thing. Promote by Canadian, support local. Um, you do have to be careful though when you are looking at. You talked on this
yeah.
earlier, and I want to bring it up. Those charts that are circulating online, helpful, but some of them are misleading. The
Yes.
hand went right to my face when I saw Canada Dry on that list as a Canadian
It
product.
is not a Canadian product.
Don't let the name fool you. Canada Dry is actually owned by Keurig Dr. Pepper, which is an American company. It says Canada on it.
But
It's
there's,
not Canadian. So find an alternative if we are going to go back to that. But um, the premiers, Doug Ford, Ebby in British Columbia, they all came out very quickly and said, "We are not going to put up with this. We are offended. We are disgusted. We're hurt. We're standing up for Canada." The provinces united, and
yeah. And
our
united under Justin Trudeau too. Said we support him and his decision, and we all came together in this decision.
exactly, except Alberta. Let's just put that
Yeah,
asterisk there.
she even said, Danielle Smith, that she supported what Trudeau was doing because he was good with it because the way that he put the tariffs on didn't hurt one province more than one another, nor did it hurt more than one industry more
And,
than
and
another.
and you're right there. I mean, and that was also part of the approach is no one province should have to
Yeah.
suffer more than the other. And to Alberta's long-standing beef with the rest of the country is Alberta is an economic boon
Yep.
for the rest of the country, right? They provide oil and energy and all sorts of other economic sources of growth. Um, and the rest of the country is kind of like, oh yeah, well we'll share in the money. And their thought is, well,
Isn't
what about
Ontario the
us?
biggest GDP in Canada?
I don't know that. I don't know that. We have the biggest population. We
Anyways,
may have, we're gonna have to look into that.
we're just gonna ask. Hey Google,
Oh
does
dear God, are
Ontario
we
have the
Googling
biggest
this?
GDP in Canada?
No. No, no, no. We're not Googling this, are we? Can we not?
Largest economy in Canada, making up around 38% of Canadian GDP.
Okay.
Okay, we do this in person too. We Google. I Google
We
this.
Google, but we should be more prepared.
We
I'm so
we
sorry.
don't answer that question.
I'm so sorry.
What are you apologizing for, Kyle?
Moving on. So, I mean, the provinces have all united in our response to Donald Trump's tariffs, but
But we have to give Doug credit for one more thing.
oh, what's that?
He broke the contract with Elon Musk.
Yes,
It
yes,
was a
yes,
million
yes.
dollar
A
contract,
hundred
100 million.
million dollar contract. He did receive controversy for signing it in the first place. Um, he ripped the contract up. Elon Musk replied on Twitter or X, sorry, oh well.
Oh
His
well.
exact reply was, oh
Oh,
well.
because how much money is he making
Oh,
over
a
it,
hundred
right?
million to him is
It was
nothing.
nothing.
But I think the message is clear. If you're going to mess with Canada, Canada is not going to take it lying down. We are going to respond accordingly. And Doug Ford did the right thing there. He signed a contract. He defended the contract against, the Liberals, the NDP, who want to bring him down so bad. And he ate that, ripped it up, moved on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we can't ignore his history, but we do have to give him props for
I'm
the
giving credit
moment.
there. I will give credit where it's due, even if it hurts my dear friend. Speaking of Elon Musk, Elon. So don't know if anyone has been paying attention to this, but over the
Have you
past
noticed?
few days, past few weeks, he has really taken a liking to appearing at other political events in
Hmm.
other countries. Um, Germany just had some sort of event. I'm not quite sure what
It
it
was a
was.
party for the AfD, which is the very right-wing party in Germany.
He appeared there on a video. I refused to watch. I didn't
Of
want to
course you
hear
did.
it. Of course you did.
You could have.
I did not want to watch it. I did not want to in any way support that filth. I'm calling it filth. I'm sorry. This is an ultra right wing party that has some very very disturbing views. And Elon Musk is supporting it,
Yeah.
and that
After throwing the Hitler hand sign a couple days
true
ago, or
true.
at the inauguration, but at that AfD forum that he was at, he actually said that people shouldn't be held responsible for the things that their, people or their ancestors had done. So that Germans shouldn't feel guilt for what happened during the Holocaust anymore, that they shouldn't be held responsible for that. And I think that really takes a certain level of something inside of you to be able to say that. But I think Germans are the ones who say, okay, we're not going to have swastikas. We're not going to have anything that reminds us of that, except for the things that are important, like the concentration camps, the history, the part that can remind them of what can happen when populism rises and terrible things happen. And Elon Musk is like, oh, that's not your fault anymore. Do what you need to do. Let's deport them all.
Wasn't the phrase "no more"
Yeah,
or "never again"?
never again.
Never again. And it seems that phrase is falling, into the shadows because we're starting to
Absolutely.
see the rise in anti-Semitism. We're starting to see the rise in bigotry, racism, you name it. These are things that happened during the Second World War
And wasn't
that led to atrocities. I mean, this is the 80th anniversary, if I'm not
it
mistaken,
was
of
that day or the day before?
of the liberation of Auschwitz.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And there is Elon Musk appearing at this event as if, whatever, and telling people, don't worry about it. Happened a long time ago. Move on. Okay, fine. It happened a very long time ago. Nobody who's in government in Canada, the US, Germany, or any country for that matter, who's in government today was no, they were alive, sorry, but they weren't in power then. They weren't responsible for what took place. But what's that saying? Those who forget history are doomed to
Did you
repeat
repeat it?
it. I know it
Hmm.
gets thrown around a lot, but I do believe it's true. Um, and I'm not saying Germany should have to apologize forever and ever and ever and feel the people there feel guilty. They didn't do it. But there's a difference between feeling guilty and saying, hey, our country did these horrible
Yeah.
things
Taking
years ago.
accountability.
Exactly, accountability. We didn't do this ourselves, but we know it happened in this country with our, forefathers or ancestors, whatever
Hmm.
you want to call it. And we're committed to not letting that happen again. And I think that goes for every country because
Absolutely.
every country has things that happened, maybe not to that scale, but definitely happened that were
Absolutely.
wrong. I mean, we have the residential schools in
Hmm.
Canada. You have the horrific racial injustices that took place in America, in the South, and Canada too. Canada's
Yeah.
not innocent there.
With Rwanda. I mean, there's just been so many horrible things that have happened. And, acknowledging and taking accountability is important. And, I think that's part of the whole dark tourism idea of going there and understanding how cruel humans can be
Mhm.
and how we can heal from that and make sure that we do better. Not sure we're doing better right now, but moving that in. So the history of Elon Musk, sort of looking at history. So Donald Trump today or yesterday, one of the two, posted that what was happening in South Africa to white people and the racism that they're facing with the land in South Africa has to stop. So he's going to put tariffs on South Africa. I wonder where that came from, Elon Musk. I wonder where that happened. And then he's doing his tariffs against them, and Elon Musk is promoting this on X and saying, yeah, what's happening to the white people there? And they're like, it's not, it's racism, it's all these horrible things. And so these ideas of anger and hatred are absolutely being shown in the scorched earth policy. That's all I can call it, or carpet bombing that is happening with Elon and Donald Trump. So today he went to USAID,
Was it
United States,
USAID?
yeah, AID, which is the aid group. And one of the things that they do is a lot of wonderful things in South Africa and in the nation or in the continent of
So this
Africa.
is an organization that was founded under John F. Kennedy when
Yeah.
he was president. And correct me if I'm wrong, the whole premise of it was to organize the aid that America gives to other countries
Mhm.
and distribute it accordingly. And maybe that's looked at, officially it's looked at as a
Mhm.
needless level of bureaucracy. I don't know.
I
But the
can't.
way the way it's being handled in tearing it apart and changing it, this isn't a thoughtful, okay, let's look at this and see how we can either improve it or get rid of it. This is, I don't like it. I don't like where the money's going. It doesn't stand with my political agenda.
Shut it down.
Gone. Shut it down.
He took away loads of money from Lutheran groups that were giving their money and helping people around the world. This organization or government office provides water across the globe to people who don't have water. So they just shut that down. You're not going to have water anymore. Also, but one of the things that's really interesting is that I've read that a lot of spy agents actually use this organization, this government thing to go to places to under the auspices of the things that they're doing and actually doing covert operations. So that in a way, they're also hurting CIA
Well,
and the
and
spies.
that doesn't surprise me. I mean, providing aid to another country that needs it and inserting some sort of operative in
Yeah,
there, by no means am I an expert. Beyond my love of espionage books, I am no expert in how that works, but it would sound like a logical step. Hey,
absolutely.
we're going to put someone in, they're going to do their thing, we're going to find out what we have to find out and do what we have to do. So getting rid of an organization with such an international reach,
But that was built by Congress. They can't destroy something that Congress, they have to get Congress to agree to this. And then after he's told everyone not to come to work on Monday morning that, they're shutting it down, Marco Rubio became in charge of USAID.
yeah, he became the acting
Yeah.
director of it.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, what are
Who
you
is
the
now
acting
he's now
director?
Secretary of State. So he's now Secretary of State, he's acting director. Um, I've got nothing. I
And
mean,
what they're doing is actually anti-constitutional because it's set up by Congress and Congress controls it, but they've just taken it away. But we can't say anything that it's not law breaking because let's talk about him getting all the data of the Treasury, everybody's information, all the things that are there, who just gave him and his like six, people, a couple who are under age of 16, I believe.
what
Yeah.
really?
Who are like his lackeys who
Oh,
are saying that,
can't be. Come on.
oh my God, I have to show you the picture after this of the guy, one of the guy who's from Canada that's working for him. Um, who has a
Wow.
ridiculous nickname, which I can't remember, nor would I say it on air.
This will be fact checked. I'm
This
just
will be
gonna
fact
say
checked.
that now. This has to be fact checked.
Absolutely.
But
I've been reading about it all day.
damn,
Um, and so, anyways, they've been saying that they're going to bring in the US Marshal if these people don't let them
I
have the
did read
data
that.
and stuff like that. So they've really just done this scorch earth. But not only are they taking everyone's social insurance numbers and all this data, and no one is saying, "Hey, yo, you don't even have security clearance. We didn't elect you. What are you doing in here?" They've also gone to all of the organizations that have DEI and they've painted over women, people of color,
Yes,
everyone on the
yes.
walls who have done something. So he's just erasing the history of people that are not white, rich men.
Well, I mean, Project 2025.
Here it
I mean,
comes.
that was something that Donald Trump and the Republican Party and JD Vance and every person who campaigned for Donald Trump said, "Oh no, no, no. We don't know what Project 2025 is. We're not going to support that. We're not going to govern by that." Well, here we
Yeah,
are. It is almost what, 3 weeks into his
yeah,
presidency, and every single thing in the Project 2025 playbook so far has come to fruition. He has
absolutely.
done it all.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
okay, maybe some people in the Republican Party will say, their favorite phrase is promises made, promises kept. Um, what cost? What cost does this
Yeah,
come at?
why are they not like, I mean, why are they not saying we're not going to confirm anybody until you stop doing this shit? Like literally, if they can't, if they don't confirm his people, And I know they don't have the majority of seats, but they can blanket that. They're not gonna get everything they want. Someone has to say something and do something. This
But
erasure of history is a wrong. The taking of information that has nothing to do with them, and we will fact check them. I will Google it because it makes them so
oh my
upset.
God.
It makes them so angry.
But I mean, and speaking of confirming people, like we know the Republican Party has control of both, Congress, the House of Representatives
And
and
Senate.
Senate. Um, in the Senate, because that's their role to, advise and consent. I don't think there's enough opposition right now to oppose many of his appointees. I mean, obviously, they said Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and surprisingly, Mitch McConnell
Mm,
said no to Hexeth as being the
yeah.
Secretary of Defense. It wasn't enough turn
No, but I think that
to turn
if
that
enough
down.
people are like, why did they have my social insurance number or social security number in America? Why did they have my banking information?
Mhm.
What am I going to get my
And,
stuff?
and and the thing is, why do they have it and why was it turned over, like you said, to somebody who was not elected, somebody who technically does not work for the federal government? This
And doesn't have
agency,
security clearance to do it.
it raises a lot of questions, and I'm surprised that more and more Americans are not asking that question because I can tell you now, if a Democrat had done this, if Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or God forbid Barack Obama, when he was president, said, "I'm going to take some,
George Soros
oh,
and let him have access to absolutely everything because that is the equivalent.
the Republicans would have gone absolutely bonkers, ape shit, and yeah, we would
You're
be
the potty mouth this week.
we'll take turns. But I mean, they would have gone apocalyptic at this. The idea that
Yep.
some liberal billionaire, uh, who's eyeball deep into conspiracies is going to have access to my personal information. Well, flip that over. Elon Musk, who's a very rich billionaire, richest man in the world, definitely on the conservative side. Well, some version of conservatism. Um, he is now accessing all that information, him and his people.
Yeah.
That's concerning. That we have to follow, that we have to watch, and that we have to really hold to the ground there because our whole people to the ground. I don't know what else to say on that because it's shocking
Ridiculous.
that somebody like him was given access to all
Okay.
that information.
So from there, we're just going to keep going. I want to
A bit of a
say,
roll
bit
tonight.
of a rule. Okay, so let's talk about social media.
Hmm.
So I can't even with some of the things that are happening right now. So today, Donald Trump said that or an executive order, that he is going to create this tax, and I have to look at the exact wording for it, for a US sovereign wealth fund. It's a tax that he's instituted so that way he can buy TikTok. So if we recall, TikTok was
Pardon me.
banned by the Supreme Court. He didn't follow through on that ban. He let them stay. And now he wants to purchase it. So I want us to think about these
Oh,
ideas.
sorry, not to cut you off, but let them stay on a temporary extension,
Oh, yeah,
which I
that's true.
forget how many days is left on it, but still enough time for this to
For
come
this to
in.
happen.
Go on.
So if we think about the situation, we have Elon Musk controlling X.
Hmm.
So that's controlling the message. We have Bezos, which has newspapers and
Washington Post, you have Amazon, which many of us use across the world, Prime, which is now getting
well, I'm
into.
not anymore because of the tariffs, but I'm not a traitor. But we also have Zuckerberg and all of Meta, where he's like, well, we're not going to do any fact checking anymore. We're going to do all these things. So now they are really truly controlling the message and the propaganda, which I don't know if we all remember fascism studies or even the rise of Hitler. Controlling the message is the most important thing. So now, if Donald Trump and the government owns
You just
TikTok,
nosedived right into that.
yeah, I did. Well, that's what I do. Welcome to my class lectures. If he owns TikTok, then what is the narrative and the message that's going to be out there? Because he's taken the New York Times, ABC, all of them out of the Pentagon, out of the press room, brought in Breitbart, OAN, all of the New York Post, bringing in the ones that will say his message. So if he controls the entire narrative and controls all media, social media, and other media, going after CBS, remember they're about to capitulate with them.
Hmm.
He owns the narrative. So whatever the story is that he wants to tell is a story that Americans are going to hold, which leads me to maybe, regardless, or we need our lawyers to look into this, not my personal lawyers, but Canadian lawyers,
Yeah, we
about
don't have a
free
budget for that.
speech. But this idea is Twitter and Meta products actually a national security threat to us? Because if it is controlled by that government, I mean, they're always saying that CBC is at the behest of the Canadian government and,
Specifically the Liberal government.
liberal government, even though when the federal government is run by the conservatives, it's the same thing. But um, if it is government controlled social media messaging now, that is, I mean, we don't hang out on MeWe. We don't hang out on a lot of the other social media that's directly Chinese related that is controlled and the message is there, right? So why are we saying that we want this message from America of disinformation
Mhm.
and lies and propaganda free in our country when they are obviously trying to annex us?
And look, I mean, we all use Facebook, we all use Instagram, we all use X and Blue Sky, which, Blue Sky is
Blue
not,
skies on their own.
is on their own, but we all use these social media platforms, have for years. The amount of data they have on all of us is
Yeah.
astronomical. We know that. For those of you who like to copy and paste and share those
Love it.
things of, I do not consent to Facebook doing this or that, you realize that that does absolutely nothing. But
Absolutely.
you bless your heart, have fun with that. It does nothing. It does
Just,
nothing. Um, they have this information. When you signed up, you gave
yeah, we gave
consent.
it to her.
Um, to your point, is it going to be a threat now that we have uh, someone in charge over in the States who is not necessarily fond of Canada at the moment, or at least the version of Canada he's seeing, and he happens to have these social media giants in his pocket and be like, listen, I'm not liking what I see happen over there. They have an election coming up. Why don't we put our finger on the
Mhm.
scales? Again, that's very far-fetched, and I'm
It's
not
not far.
I'm trying to be delicate here.
It's not far-fetched because
Okay,
when you
okay,
think about, I mean, honestly, Elon Musk tried to affect the British
it's
government
true.
with talking about the groomer gangs,
Yes.
something that happened 10 years ago, right? Huge conversation. Elon Musk at the AFD, which we just talked about 5 minutes ago,
Mhm.
that is changing. I
So,
mean, there was a
okay,
huge protest against right wing in
far-fetched,
Germany.
wrong phrase, but I don't want to say that it's for sure happening because
No,
we haven't seen it yet.
well, we don't have the security access to make sure that data is there. But if we do
Hmm,
look at the posts that are coming out, the language about Canada that's coming out, the
it's true.
support of Pierre Polyev. Elon Musk has given Pierre his, thumbs up of, we support you. He's gone on Jordan Peterson. What happens if he's on Joe Rogan next? It's the
True.
same Theo boys, Gen Z boys that they're going
Well,
after.
and speaking of that, I mean, you look at this, you have Mark Carney go on to The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. It was a well-received interview.
Mhm.
People loved it, people liked it. Um,
What was it that Rachel Gilmore said? Oh, he had Riz. That's what she said.
Riz,
Riz.
okay, Riz, my God, what does language come to? But on that note, though, then you have Pierre Polyev, who he's probably not going to go on Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart would eviscerate him. He's going to go to Joe
Joe
Rogan,
Rogan.
and as if Joe Rogan even wants to have him on. Let's be honest, Joe Rogan is probably thinking, Pierre, who? I'm being honest here. Do you really
But don't
think
you
a
think?
lot of these personalities have any idea of who is
Do you
running in
know? Okay,
Canada
I'm going to disagree.
unless they're told. Maybe I'm wrong,
I'm
and
going to
maybe you're
disagree.
going to point me in the right direction here,
I'm going
but
to disagree.
go.
Okay, so Maxime Bernier in the last federal election
Hmm.
actually went on Dave Rubin, and Dave
Okay.
Rubin is one of the largest influencers in the right wing podcasting realm in the United States because his listeners from Canada said we want him on you, so that way more people will know about him and more people will vote for him. So we have to remember that Joe Rogan is one of the number one podcasts in Canada as well.
True.
So his market also are our citizens, right? So if enough people say I want you there, and then you sort of have what is it? When you tee it up, tariffs. If I mean Joe Rogan could say, well, I mean, Doug Ford was on CNN. I mean, Joe Rogan could say, you
Which is
know
like a
what?
cardinal sin for
Cardinal sin.
MAGA right now. So anything conservative, you appear on CNN. What is wrong with
What
you?
is wrong with you? I mean, they can say the same thing about Fox too. But I think like the thing is
Excuse
that
me.
there is an audience there for them and they know their audience is there.
True.
And if you can get a very Trump-esque person in Canada and Trump in America, what is going to happen? 51st state or at least, very good bedfellows. And, friends
True.
with benefits happening.
And I mean, okay, that raises a very valid point because now you're looking at it with, all right, you've got two leaders in charge who see eye to eye on everything. And that sovereign nation, that we are our own country, that curtain starts to fall, and all of a sudden, America has more. I mean, America has a lot of influence in Canada as it
Yeah.
is. Our cultures are very, very
Yeah.
similar. When you visit the US, admit it, it's not like you're visiting another country for the most part. It's like visiting another city.
Yeah.
Aside, they have more American flags than
And
we
then we
do.
have to go through the border.
And the border, exactly. But to that point, when you have leaders that see eye to eye like that to that degree, what becomes okay? What becomes allowable that wasn't before, that maybe Canadians would not be comfortable with, that Americans might not be comfortable with? Obviously, I think that relationship would be very one-sided.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but it
And
raises a very good point.
absolutely. And the use of social media is important. Now, I am taking out my phone because I need to actually quote it. I'm not pulling
Oh
up Google.
boy.
But one of the things that I actually said to Kyle today was that Tim Pool, who's an influencer online on X Day, very right wing, might be linked to some questionable behaviors, wrote, after we destroy the Canadian economy, their will to resist will erode. We will then march in unopposed and deliver Canada to its rightful place as a territory of the United States. So we have people who are influential people. I mean, he's part of the Groypers kind of thing, like engaging with this stuff that Canada, we don't have agency, that we're just going to be the part of something. And so when you think about that message and the message of those right-wing influencers, it's problematic and something that we need to take into consideration. Absolutely. So, if we are going to talk about media and we're going to talk about a message, today Kyle is doing God's angry man for the week.
So, this week's God's Angriest Man is the Oklahoma State Secretary of Public Instruction, Ryan Walters. Now, Ryan Walters was in the news last year and part of this year so far for a few things. One, wanting to bring the Bible into Oklahoma schools. Now, many people will say, great idea, bring God back into
Mm,
school in prayer. And look, I'm not going to argue your position on that at the moment.
praise
That's
God.
not this. That's not for this conversation. That's another conversation. But what was controversial about that was the Bible that he wanted specifically, and that was the Trump Bible, as it was
Hmm.
called. This is a Bible that was largely created by Lee Greenwood, who sings that 80s Americana anthem. What's it called?
Proud to be an American.
Proud to be an American, or
We
at
all
least
know the
I
words
know
because we
I'm
hear it all the
free.
time, that YMCA.
And the CA won't hear that the same way again. But but that Bible was several times more expensive than the other options, and ultimately it did not get selected.
But he did purchase a whack of them.
He purchased a whack of them, but the government decided, we're going to go a different route here. We're going to maintain some of the same requirements that he wanted for the Bible, but not that specific one. That's not why he's God's angriest man this week.
Nope.
Actually, it's for a whole other reason. Yes, he has another reason, and that is under President Donald Trump's new immigration policy. Um, Ryan Walters, in support of that, has
Hmm.
announced that schools will be required to know the legal status of parents who are enrolling their kids into school. So, for a moment, before you think, well, that's not all that bad, and I mean, on its surface, it doesn't sound all that bad. There's a lot of things you have to know about a kid's parents, but we're talking about children who are born in America who are citizens under the law.
Under birthright.
How their parents got there, separate conversation, separate argument, but these kids are citizens. They're entitled by law to that education. They're required by law to go to
Hmm.
school. You are now forcing these families to make very difficult decisions. My kid isn't going to school because they're going to ask about my status. And, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are in the country illegally. I'm not saying that's right. If you're in the country legally, that's not right. It isn't right. There are laws, but I do believe there should be a process to change that is humane, that
Yeah.
is respectful to them,
Hmm.
because like it or not, illegal immigrants, immigrants in general, do play a very large part in the economy in society. I'm not defending violent ones are ones who break the law. No, you do that, back you go. No ifs, ands, or buts. Um, you're smiling there.
I'm just gonna let
You
it go.
you have a
I'm
thought.
gonna let it go.
You're gonna say something. I
I'm gonna
know
let it
it.
go. I'm gonna let it go.
But the point of that is, uh, it's wrong to bring kids into this. It's wrong to have to dangle the education in front of
Well,
them
I mean,
and
think
put
about
them
the
in that horrible,
emotion.
put them in that position. Because think of it this way: they just announced that places that were previously untouchable when it came to raids, churches and schools,
In hospitals.
hospitals, sanctuaries, no more. So I want you to picture that, you're in Oklahoma, you're there on a Sunday morning praying and singing and kumbaya and praise Jesus and all that fun stuff. And all of a sudden, half a dozen or more armed ICE agents storm in and grab Pablo from the front pew. And he's been volunteering at this church now for 10 or 15 years. Your family knows him, the kids know him, everyone knows him. He's a great guy. He has a family of his own. He works, I don't know where he works, but he works somewhere. He pays his taxes. And the one mistake he made was coming into the country illegally. And you know what? He did that. He did that. Absolutely. But do we have to be inhumane about this? Can we not find a different way to address this where, look, you're in the country illegally. How do we fix that
I think that there's a lot of questions about this and more than we can get into a discussion about it today. But
today?
we also have to think about that if you were a child who was going to kindergarten and
Hmm.
you were signing up and they asked your parents what their status was and the parents told them and then because you were going to school your parents got deported and you got deported with them in
Think
your
about
entire
that.
life like the scar that is going to be on you forever. And the fact is that you know children are children like
Mhm.
regardless. And I just, it's angry that he's so desperate to match every criteria that Donald Trump sort of sets out
It's like
that
he's
he doesn't,
auditioning for some role that doesn't exist because the last time I checked, and maybe I'm wrong here, has Trump paid any mind to him? Has he even
no.
once said, "Hey, my guy in Oklahoma there, he's doing the right thing. Maybe we have a spot for him in our administration."
To
Not a
dismantle the
thing.
education system in America anyway, so he wouldn't even get a gig doing that. So, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, dress for the job you want, not the one that they're about to dismantle. So, I don't really know, but that man is angry and
Hmm.
is really trying to be like, oh, I was going to say something that I'm not going to say, but he really, really wants Daddy to come home and Trump for sure. You
Oh,
know, that whole thing that what I'm not the first one to say that. Um, but I think that he is God's angry man because he's trying to meet some limit or litmus that is what will Donald Trump respect and want me to be? And I'm going to be the brown shirt for Donald Trump in Oklahoma.
a brown shirt. Okay, that's a very strong phrase there. And
Love me a little
I'm
bit.
gonna let you all do your research on that. That's your homework for this week is to look up what that means, and we'll talk more about that on our next
And the
episode, I'm
best
sure.
way to find out if we do talk about it on the next episode, or if Kyle and I go down some crazy tangents,
It,
is to subscribe and join us for our conversations. We're hoping in the future to do live broadcasts, which means that we can be in conversation with you. So please press that button, and we hope to see you again next week.